everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of The Divergents, a youth project that aims to dive into the lives and work of people who make a difference in the world. The Divergents. I'm Malia Makaisa, and with me is my brother Sam, our buddy Elson, as well as the Laxo brothers, Farron, Philip, and Preston. To give you a short background of today's episode, our family has always had a love for animals. And in the last couple of years, we've had the amazing opportunity to adopt our dogs. Chloe and our other one, Toby, from Open Paws Jeddah.
We also adopted Felix from Opj last year, while Elson's family adopted Cookie. And so we want to share the word about this amazing organization that helps rescue, rehabilitate, and rehome Jeddah's abandoned dogs. So today we are going to have a chat with Miss Nour Fitiany, the adoptions coordinator of Open Paws Jeddah. Hello, Miss Nour. We're so
Hi,
glad to have you here with us today.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Let's dive right in.
Yeah.
What is Open Paws Jeddah and how did it start?
Okay, so Open Paws Jeddah is a group of volunteers who love dogs, and we rescue and we rehome dogs in Jeddah and abroad. We started back in 2012. Basically, it was started by a group of expats who love dogs, and they realized that there was no official dog shelter in Jeddah, and there were many dogs that needed help. And so they decided to start their own type of thing. And back in that time, there wasn't a lot of social media presence. It was mainly Facebook. And there was a group called Pets in Need. Maybe you guys have heard of it, where people would go in and just, post about different cases of cats and dogs that need rescuing. And so they met through that page. So they came together through that page of their love of dogs, and they decided to make their own separate thing that was just focused on dogs, and they called it Open Paws Jeddah. And so that's how it started.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it grew from that, obviously, because more and more people joined. Some people had to, some people left. From the people who started it back in the day, there's only one co-founder who's here in Jeddah still, still working on an Opj in a big way. And so many people have joined since then from all walks of life, different ages, different nationalities, different backgrounds, different, different occupations. But all like united in their love for animals and giving back to the community.
What year was it started?
It was started in, technically, I guess you can say it was 2012. Yeah, that's when they came together to create Open Paws Jeddah.
I was born in 2012, so Open Paws Jeddah is as old as me.
Yeah, there you go.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, very cool.
So it's been almost 10 years. Can you tell us more about how it's run and where you get your funding?
Okay, so the way that it's run is we depend 100% on volunteers. The volunteers do everything from taking care of the dogs in the shelter that we have, and we have a very huge foster, like a lot of fosters basically, or foster volunteers who take care of the dogs in their homes. Because ideally we want the dog to be in a home. We don't want them to be in the shelter, but sometimes we have no choice, so we have to keep them in the shelter. So we have volunteers helping us with caring for the dogs in the shelter. We have people who volunteer to foster dogs. We have people who are volunteering to take care of the social media. We have people who are volunteering to review applications for people that want to adopt dogs. And then, if somebody calls us in about a dog that's lost, or the dog that they found, they're trying to find their owners, or a dog that they found in the street that they want to rescue. So there's a huge, that's basically what we work on, is we depend a lot on volunteers to run. In terms of income, mainly I would say that it's, through the help of our supporters, people who, see the work that we're doing and they want to help the dogs that we're helping. And so what we usually do is we would ask people to transfer, to help us cover vet bills by transferring directly to the clinics that we work with, and we deal with a number of them. We also, people donate all types of material things. So they donate dog food, dog beds, crates, things like that. And that all goes to the dogs that we are rescuing. So that also helps care for them. Some groomers will give us discounts. Some groomers will give us free grooms, which is a huge help to us because every little bit counts. So we get help from here and from there, which is really great.
Wow.
Yeah.
How often do you get called to rescue dogs?
Well, it's hard to say, but I would say like probably on like every other day almost, or like a weekly. Yani it's pretty frequent. On average, I would say maybe like, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have a statistic for you. I'm sorry, but okay, I'll give you an example. Just in the past 2 or 3 weeks, we got called about 7 different dogs that were found on the street, and of the 7, only 2 the owners were found. But not all the time we're involved in actually rescuing the dogs. Some people will actually pick up the dogs themselves and then they contact us. Some of them can keep them until the owner is found. Some of them will be like, well, we can't keep this dog, and so then we have to find a place to accommodate. And that's, it's interesting that you bring this up because like the dog that I dropped off at your house yesterday, she was one of them. She was found on the street with a collar, but no identification. And so we advertised looking for her owners. But in the meantime, until we find her owners, we have to, we place her in a foster home. So, yeah. So unfortunately, there's a lot of those. And many of them, we don't find their owners, sadly.
Okay. There's so much more to know about what happens, and Preston is going to be asking more about that.
Sure.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a question too. A lot of dogs sure need your help. What are the most common reasons for dogs to be abandoned on the streets?
Okay, I mean, it's hard to really know, right? Because when we find them, I always say I wish they could talk and tell us, basically. And a lot of it is like, you're acting like Sherlock Holmes. You're trying to figure out, why did this dog end up on the street? A lot of the times when you find a very clean dog that's obviously well cared for, it probably means somebody is missing this dog and has lost them. And a lot of times we find their owners. And usually when we ask them, how did the dog get out of your house, they would tell us, oh, somebody left the door open, right? The dog was playing outside, somebody left the door open. So that's usually for the dogs that go missing and we find their owners. For the dogs that we don't find their owners, a lot of the times they would be covered in ticks, they would have fungus, they would be really malnourished. Some of them even get hit by cars, which is, just really heartbreaking. And so a lot of the times we can, I guess, surmise that the reason why they were let go is because they were suffering from the ticks or from the fungus or whatever, and the people probably didn't know how to care for them. And so they kind of were just like, let them out on the street. That's what we can just assume. Yeah.
Oh, that's really sad to hear.
That's with regards to the dogs that we rescue from the street, right? Then you have the dogs that are surrenders, or people who, contact us, like Cookie, for example. Like she was with her previous owner who had a litter of puppies that came by mistake. And so he had to, figure out what to do with the puppies because he couldn't keep them. So he contacted us to find homes for the puppies. And he gave us, I think it was 2 or 3, and one of them was Cookie. So we found, alhamdulillah, we found a good home for her. And so a lot of the times, a lot of the dogs that we get are from people who cannot take care of them anymore. And the reasons range from, we have a new baby, the baby has an allergy, the neighbors are complaining from the barking, or the fact that it's just a dog in the building that they live in. We're moving and we can't take the dog with us. We're traveling and we can't take the dog with us. Or the number one reason is we don't have time for the dog anymore. The dog he's gotten bigger, he has a lot of energy, and the kids are busy, and no one has time for the dog. And so this is one of the top reasons that we get, sadly.
That's really sad to hear. Not only that the dogs are being abandoned on the street, but that, some pet owners themselves do not have the perseverance, let's say, that,
Yeah.
that's if they left their dogs because it was
Yeah,
too
like
hard to
so
take care of.
so 60% of the dogs that we get, and this is like based on the like the past couple of years when we actually saw where the dogs came from, 60% of the dogs are from, like, they're surrendered by their previous owners, and 40% of the dogs that we take in are rescues from the street.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's really sad. And for
Yeah.
for some of those dogs, I bet that one of those reasons is because, maybe some pet owners don't have that, like, let's say, that innate compassion that, since they separated the so-called, like, forever home from the dogs themselves, despite the commitment of adopting a dog, just because, they value their own comfort over the entire life of the dog.
Yeah, and that's assuming that they bought them. Sorry, that they adopted them. Many people buy dogs, and this is the sad thing. There are actually many people who would have applied to adopt a dog from us. We would have rejected them. They go, they buy a dog, and then they contact us and say, we can't keep the dog anymore. And this is the most frustrating thing, because it's the concept of having a dog is very nice and very exciting, but once you have one, it's a huge responsibility, and you realize, like, the work it takes, and a lot of the issues that the dogs have, that people, like where I was saying, the dogs that have fungus, or they have ticks, or they have their hair gets matted. This is basic stuff that you can avoid. You can groom a dog so that he doesn't become so matted. You can be checking him for ticks and getting rid of them, and putting, like, the preventive treatment so that the dog doesn't become infested. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do, but a lot of people don't realize this. And the second thing is, unfortunately, a lot of people keep their dogs outside. And so this is a recipe for disaster, especially for dogs that have like Maltese or Shih Tzus, or these types of dogs, that their hair will get matted very quickly with the weather conditions, and then they can get ticks, and the situation just gets really out of hand. So I always say, if you want to get a dog and you want to keep him outside, don't get one.
Oh, that's, I mean, yeah, that's because I guess many pet owners, are overexcited to get dogs, that they don't realize, the possible consequences of actually getting a dog. Sort of like having a baby of the sorts. When you have a child, it's cool to have a child, but then you also have to feed the child and, do the
Yes.
pay for the education and all that stuff.
And like a child, you don't abandon them when they're not, necessarily, listening to you. And you really, like, you research and you put in the effort to look into how you can get them to be well trained. It's not a coincidence that the majority, like, I would say maybe we get more male dogs than we do female dogs, right? And why do you think that is? Like, what do you think? If I tell you this, like, we get more male dogs than we do female dogs, what do you think would be the reason?
Maybe because it's a,
You have
I
a
don't
male
know.
dog, right? Like,
Yeah,
you tell me.
we do have a male dog, but I mean, I'm currently not sure if there's any difference realistically in taking care of a female dog and male dog.
I think Alira now maybe has more insights, because they have two male dogs and they started fostering a female dog as of yesterday. So I think she has something she wants to say. What do you think?
I think it's because the male dogs probably aren't neutered,
Mm.
so they pee on mark everywhere. Yeah, that's difficult to handle. And then I think for the female dogs, they might want to keep them for breeding.
Breeding, yeah, no, that's true. I mean, mainly, I would say probably it's, yeah, like you said, a lot of people, they don't believe in neutering and spaying. And so when you have a male dog that isn't neutered, a lot of the times you have that they're marking more often, that they're exhibiting behavior that is very difficult to deal with. And I'm not saying that neutering is like a switch, but it definitely helps a big, a big part in curbing a lot of these unwanted behaviors. Um, but unfortunately, a lot of people either don't know or they feel like it's not right to do it. So yeah,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah.
I have another question. What do you do if the dog that needs rescuing is too scared or aggressive?
Okay. So basically, we have had, I think, more that the dog was scared rather than aggressive. But sometimes dogs that are scared can react aggressively. And a lot of the times they're not aggressive dogs, but because they're put in a very, I guess, for them, a very scary situation that they have no choice but to react aggressively. Right. So you have to, I guess you kind of, we kind of tell the difference, because it's very important when we're coming into a rescue situation that we kind of give the dog space and assess how he is, like look at his body language. Where is his tail? Where's his head? Is he like cowering? Is his tail between his legs? Is he looking at us? Is he not looking at us? A lot of the times when we're going to pick up a dog, we will obviously will take with us certain leashes and blankets and things like that. Sometimes we would ask a volunteer to go and assess the situation even before we bring in the dog. Is the dog friendly? Is the dog approachable? Is he coming to you or not? Right. And thankfully, most of the time, the dog is the dogs are either friendly or they're scared, but they're not aggressive. And so we find that the best way to approach a dog that is scared is to actually take another friendly dog with us. Right. So we take a dog that we know well, that's good with other dogs, that's friendly. And a lot of the times, a scared dog will kind of like be more relaxed or feel reassured when he sees that there's another dog there. But also you have to be careful that the other dog doesn't then attack the dog, so you have to really kind of check the situation. Safety is really important. If we're finding that the dog is very aggressive, we might not approach the dog because it's not worth getting hurt over. And we've actually had cases where I wouldn't say that the dog was aggressive, but he was very shy of people. So he was a big dog, was very timid of people. Multiple people have tried to catch him. They weren't able to. And then eventually someone is able to, so we have to leave the dog in the area. We provide food and water, or provide someone in the area with, to give him food and water. And then eventually sometimes with giving him food and water, he becomes tamer. And then someone is able to catch him and then contact us and say, we've managed to catch the dog. A lot of the times dogs that are aggressive or shy, once we catch them and we bring them into a more comfortable situation, they relax and they're not as scared or tend to be aggressive.
Oh, that makes sense. Since
Yeah.
in every field, it's best for, let's say, people who understand the nuances of, let's say, rescuing the dogs, for them to actually rescue the dogs, especially when like the situation involves like an external variable. In this case, a dog that has not the best temperament.
Mhm.
So I guess that's why it's a best choice for the best choice for for uh, for us to handle the situation with, let's say, with lots of care, right?
Yeah.
Um, for the next question, where do you take the dogs after rescuing them? Like, is there a main shelter where all the dogs are kept before adoption, or?
Okay, so this is actually a really good question, because before we take a dog, remember I was saying sometimes we have a volunteer go and kind of assess the situation and check, because we have to we kind of like work under this, we work with the rule as much as we can, which is that we don't pick up a dog until we know where this dog is going to go. And it's not enough that you say, well, I'm just going to pick him up and take him to the vets, because after this is the easy part. Picking the dog up or rescuing the dog and taking him to the vet, this is a very easy part. But what happens to the dog afterwards? And that's the key here. So you have to see, is it a big dog? Is it a small dog? Does the dog have a physical injury? Does he have ticks? Does he have fleas? And then where are we gonna put this dog? When the dog has a physical injury, we can take the dog directly to I don't most of the time we would pick up the dog and take the dog directly to a vet clinic to be assessed to see what does he have. And then if he's fine, then we would either put him in the shelter or put him in a foster home, which is always ideal. But it always depends on the availability of fosters, and it depends on the space we have in the shelter, because the shelter doesn't have a lot of space, unfortunately. It gets full very fast. So sometimes, unfortunately, we're not even able to take in dogs when we have no fosters or no place in the shelter. And this is the most sad. But sometimes we find people who will sponsor a dog stay in a boarding kennel until we can bring them into the shelter or into a foster home.
That's unfortunate that the kennel or the shelter, gets full really easily. But it's also nice to know, since maybe one of our viewers might want to foster and adopt one as well.
Yeah, that would be great. We always need fosters. We always need, obviously, adopters. And we always need volunteers to come and help with take care of the dogs that are in the shelter.
Yeah, that's true. Concerning adopting, I think Philip also has some questions too.
Okay.
The amount of work you put into this is amazing.
Thank you, Fana.
We often see you ask for fosters after you pick up a dog. What's the difference between fostering and adopting?
Okay. And they're very similar in the ways that we assess the person, because at the end of the day, sometimes people who foster, they will adopt. But basically, fostering is the temporary care of a dog until we find somebody to permanently to adopt the dog, right? So a person will be like, okay, I can foster the dog, so they take care of the dog, and we will continually look for someone to adopt the dog. Sometimes the foster family falls in love with the dog, and then they decide to adopt them, which is always great. So from the beginning, when we're placing a dog in a foster home, we will treat them as if they're adopting. So we still have them fill in a questionnaire. We go to their house. We see where the dog is going to live. And then but in a foster situation also, we would provide the foster with all of the things that the dog needs. So leash, collar, food, if he needs a bed, the poop bags, chew toys, whatever he needs, basically, and follow up with his medical care and all of this stuff. I hope that answers your question.
Usually, how long is the foster?
I mean, it depends on the person how long they're able to keep the dog for. But if the person is only able to keep the dog for like a day or two, sometimes it's not worth it. It's not worth to keep moving a dog from home to home. Stay 1 day here, stay 2 days here, stay 3 days here. You want to give also the dog a sense of stability. So it's always ideal when a person is like, well, we can keep the dog until you find someone. And that can be literally between hours and months. Like it can be as little as a couple of hours, and it can be as long as several months before we find someone to adopt the dog. But that being said, if people are able to take the dog to foster and then they're traveling or they're just not able to keep the dog anymore, we're always there to take the dog back and find someone else to foster them.
Can you give us a brief walkthrough through the process of adopting a dog?
Okay, Alira, did you want to say something?
Or you could, instead of a few months, you could give them forever, like our first foster failure, Toby.
Well, exactly. That's what I was saying in the beginning, is that like sometimes people who foster the dogs, they end up adopting them, which is always like great, and that's really an ideal situation. It's like an ideal scenario, and we actually encourage people who are still not sure about whether they want to adopt or not to try fostering first or try dog sitting first, because there's no commitment, and you're helping an animal in need. So it's really a great way to like dip your foot into adoption. As for the adoption process, Philip, basically anybody who wants to adopt a dog first is going to fill in an application, which we have on our website. They can read about our adoption process and see the dogs that we have. They fill in the application, which has questions about their living situation, their children, how old they are, if they've been exposed to dogs, if they have other pets, if they've had dogs before, what happened to those dogs, who's going to be responsible for the dog, are they living in an apartment, in a villa, how many bedrooms. They ask their neighbors and their landlord if it's okay for them to have a dog when they travel. What's their plan for their dog? If they relocate, would they be willing to take their dog with them, and where they are relocating to, so we can help them, give them idea of, like, financially how much it's going to cost to take a dog with you. And so we ask them all these questions, and then we ask them what type of dog they're looking for, or if any of the dogs that we have they are interested in. And so based on this information, we can then make some recommendations for them for which of our dogs would be suitable for their situation. But before we arrange any visits with the dogs, we actually go to their house. So we arrange a home visit where we go to the adopter's home, and we usually would take a dog with us, either the dog they're interested in or a dog that is similar to what they're interested in. And then sometimes they even fall in love with the dog on the spot, and if the home visit goes well, then they take the dog for a trial phase, which is usually 2 weeks, to see them, to see how they go. And if after the 2 weeks they're happy with their dog, we do a follow-up visit where we check, to make sure that, they're happy, the dog is happy, that, he's being fed the right type of food, that he's being bathed not too much, and that he's being exercised properly, that they have the potty training under control, and all these things. And then that's when we would finalize the adoption. We would sign the adoption papers, and usually that's when we would hand over the dog's documents, like his vaccination book or whatnot. So that's usually our process.
Thank you for answering that question. I'm sure Perrin has some questions too.
Adopting is definitely a serious decision that means that everyone should agree with, because it's a commitment to the dog's life, because dogs don't live as long as humans. So when you adopt a dog and the dog bonds with you, it's really quite the commitment, because it could be in like 10 or 12 or even more years of their life, which may not seem much to us as humans, but to them, it's like 80 years equivalent. So what procedures do you have in place to find the most suitable family for dogs? And are there times that you found a family that say that they could, but it turned out that later they weren't able to because, they didn't tell you about a certain aspect of their situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Alir, did you want to just add something before we answer this question?
I find the adoption process really, really good.
You find it okay? Thank you. Because a lot of people are like, why are you complicating it?
It's
And the
really
reason
good.
why
Me too. I also like the adopting
so much, Philip.
process really.
Yeah, because a lot of people will tell us, well, maybe you're making it hard on people. Why don't you make the adoption process easier? And the thing is that we found that this was really the best way to ensure the best home for the dog. And because you remember all the reasons that I told you why people are giving up their dogs, so we don't want this to happen. We don't want this to happen again. The dog was abandoned once. We don't want them to be abandoned again. And I'm not saying that this, this process doesn't, that no dogs are coming back to us. They sometimes do come back to us. Like a year would would pass, and the person would, contact us and say, I'm sorry, my circumstances have changed. I need to give the dog back. And that's fine. Sometimes it happens. But I would say that the percentage is low. And part of our process is that we always say, like, once an OPJ dog, always an OPJ dog. So if a dog was adopted through us and for whatever reason, the person couldn't keep the dog anymore and they contact us, we always take on the responsibility of finding that dog a new home or take them back into our care if needed, right? And so just to touch on your question, Perrin, which is, I'm sorry, maybe you need to repeat it again.
Were there any times where you had a family or a person who
Yeah.
said that they were capable of taking care of specific kind of dog or like a dog in general, but then it turns out that they didn't explain a certain part of their situation that would have been crucial in evaluating them if they were ready to have a dog?
Yeah, this happens a lot, which is why the home visit is crucial, because what people say on paper is not what we're seeing in real life, right? And sometimes even what they would appear to be on paper, which is like, okay, they could be good, or it's hard to say what kind of adopter they would be when we would go to their house. we would really be able to tell. And taking a dog with us during the visit is very vital, because how the person reacts to the dog that you bring tells you a lot. Like, we've had people, and some of them you would be shocked. Like, it would be people who are veterinarians. They're saying, I'm a vet, masalan. You would go to their house and they would, with a dog, that they were interested in, and they would, they would step back, or, their body language says a lot about them. And you would be like, oh, this is interesting. This is saying a lot. Somebody would be scared. We've had people that disappear into other rooms, and then we discovered that they have a phobia, or they just discovered that they have a phobia. And so the home visit is usually the really good way to gauge whether these people are going to be good adopters or not, or even worth giving them like a trial, basically. So that, I would say, is the most, like, is the way. And yes, some people are they look great on paper, but when you go to see them, you sometimes see something very different, or something that they didn't mention, which is why when we do the home visit, it's so important that we make sure that all of the residents of the home are there, including the people that are working there, the kids, the parents, if they have a helper in the house. If the driver is very involved in the situation, he's going to be handling the dog with them, it's also important that we meet him. And so it's very important also for us to take a dog and see how everyone reacts to the dog.
So, actually, since you have, of course, you have a lot of dogs being adopted. Were there any actually times where the dog wasn't adopted and put in like a home, but instead the dog was lived in like a workplace or like somewhere else that's not necessarily a home for living, but possibly like a workplace or a restaurant, or because because of circumstances?
Like, you mean a dog that was adopted from us and then, like, put outside or something?
No, I mean like maybe it was adopted as the idea of not only the person but the company, and then it's like a company dog that's allowed to roam through and then be like emotional support for the employees. Do you get like people or entire companies that ask for a dog as maybe like a the office building mascot or something like that?
No, I wouldn't say that. I can't think of any off the top of my head, honestly. We have people who adopted dogs who take their dogs with them to work. We have that. But I wouldn't say that it was a company that said, okay, we want a work dog. Now, that being said, we do have, for example, people who have who work in a warehouse, or they have a stable, or they have a farm, and they're looking for a dog that can be, that can be a guard dog, or that can be just, can live there, and this is when we have the desert dogs, or the Canaan dogs are really good, because they have a very good instinct for guarding, and not necessarily in a bad way. They're very alert. They're like a natural alarm system. So they will bark at anybody new who comes into the area, who tries to take anything. They're usually good with protecting animals if they were raised with them when they were younger. So we get that, if that's close to what you were referring to.
Alira has been raising her hand multiple times, so I bet she has a couple of more questions.
Okay.
Yes, I actually do. um, it's really wonderful that Open Paws Jeddah has continued to have, sorry, has continued to have a very strong presence here, despite relying heavily on the voluntary efforts of people who support this advocacy. We'd really like to know more about your volunteer work with dogs. What inspired you to be involved in animal rescuing?
Okay, so ever since I was a kid, I always loved animals, and we had many different kinds of animals. Um, and it was funny because I always wanted a cat. Like, a dog was not really something that I was interested in. I was really mostly wanting a cat, and I would ask my mom for a cat all the time. And it wasn't until I was 13 that I actually got a cat. But before I got a cat, we had several other animals. We had hamsters and rabbits and turtles, and you really get a lot of responsibility taking care of them, because you realize you have to clean their environment, you have to feed them, you have to take them to the vet when they're not feeling well, and then a lot of the time, sadly, they die, and then you have to bury them. And so I feel like that really built a lot of responsibility for me. And then when I got my cat, who I had for like 14 years, also the same. And I think my first dog I was 21. So I wasn't, we always had a family dog, like, and because I lived with, my extended family. And so we always had German Shepherds, but they were always outside. They were never inside of the house. And so our first dog that we got, that was an indoor dog, was a small German Spitz that was a puppy that we got from one of my dad's friends who had a litter of puppies. And she lived until she was 13. So that was the first dog that I ever had. And so to answer the question about how I started with OPJ, I think, did you ask that? I think it was mostly like how I got into animal rescue. Yeah. So basically I always loved animals, and it was always something that, I was secretly passionate about. I mean, I was passionate about, but I didn't realize how passionate that it was actually my passion until I joined OPJ. So about 6-7 years ago, I got a text on my phone about a dog that was abandoned on the street. And so I went to check it out. I was just curious, just see if anybody had picked up the dog, but the dog was still there. And so I was, shocked. The dog looked like Haram. She was in distress. She had a chain around her neck. A lot of people had tried to put food for her, but nobody had taken her in. So I went online and I searched, any dog rescue. And that was when I came upon Open Paws Jeddah, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. And I quickly sent them a message, and I got a message right away saying, yes, we can take her in. And I was like, I'm willing to put her in my car and take her wherever she needs to go. And so I did that. I put her in my car and I took her to the vet. And it was funny because, like, little things you take for granted. The dog like threw up in the car, and it was a disaster. But we got to the vet clinic, and they put her in a crate until the doctor could see her, because we had no leash. She just had a chain around her neck, and she was drooling, right? And so you can just show you how little I knew. Like my friend who was with me was like, oh, I think she's rabid. Because she's drooling, and don't touch her. And so I didn't touch her. But now looking back, I know that dogs, when they are nervous, they drool. So it's not like a sign of, so little things like that. So anyways, the doctor checked her up, and then the person from OPJ, who was Carmel, who was one of the co-founders, said, you can take her to this location. Her foster will take her from you. And so I had dropped her off to her foster home. And so after I had dropped her to her foster home, I wondered about her, and Carmel would send me messages. She sent me her photos. She told me, look, now she's in we have her being treated in this vet clinic. Now she got adopted now. And I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. And I felt like what I had done was so incredible, and it was so rewarding, that I decided that I wanted to continue to do this. And so after that, I started volunteering in the shelter, and then we did more rescuing and fostering, and just got more involved in, reviewing applications and doing home visits and all that stuff. Yeah, so that's it.
I can honestly relate with the cat, but then getting a dog and then getting a cat. I forgot. But yeah, I might also be a volunteer in the future because of all of the animals we're having now.
You're already a volunteer, like
Yeah,
you're
for
already
that.
fostering, you helped
But
us. And I see you guys helping us much more. And even by doing this, like for us, like our only issue with the shelter is that our volunteers have to be a certain age, at a certain age, have to be 21 or older, because of like safety reasons. But that doesn't mean that there's other ways to volunteer if you're younger. Like volunteering is not just in the shelter. There's so many other ways to volunteer.
yep. And now on to the next question. You have definitely been an inspiration to us, and we thank you for that. You also know that it has its share of difficulties. What are the most common challenges you encounter as a volunteer?
This is also a very good question. Honestly, one of the hardest things is juggling, your personal life with this type of work, which is it's 24 hours. There is no oh, it's Friday, we have a day off, or oh, it's Eid, like we'll have a day off, like any other any other occupation, I guess. So it's really difficult because you have to really make time for it and like juggle it between your personal life and your between your personal life basically. There's people messaging at all hours of the night. There's dogs, you can't decide when the dog is going to need rescuing or not. It just can happen anytime. So I would say that that's one of the biggest challenges. Another big challenge is, where do we put the dog? A lot of the times, like, we want to help all the dogs, but we can't. So sometimes we have to pick and choose between the ones that really need us the most. Sometimes we have to leave dogs, we can't take them in. A lot of the times we get calls about desert dogs, and desert dogs are some of the hardest dogs to rescue. They're some of the hardest dogs to rehome, to rehabilitate. But at the same time, they are the toughest dogs. So if any dog is going to be able to survive on the streets, it's the desert dog, right? So a lot of the times, we have to make the call, where we can't take them in, and that's some of the most challenging. Some dogs that we have, they just, they have a lot of issues and they stay with us for a very long time, and like we struggle to find somebody to adopt them. Like I remember, I don't know if you guys recall Chester, the tripod dog. This dog stayed with us for 2 years until we were able to finally find him a home in England. Another huge challenge obviously is like the financial demands of what we do, because taking care of dogs is very costly. Like, all the medical stuff, and then like the day-to-day care of like their food and board and all this stuff, and keeping them healthy, like all of these things, it costs money. And it's sometimes, very difficult to keep, to keep the, I guess, financially afloat. That's also very difficult. So I would say those are the main challenges. So I have a question for you guys. Okay, so I mean, obviously you all have dogs. Thank you guys for adopting. What is it that made you like? What is it that made you feel like you wanted to adopt a dog, and not just buy one? Or I don't know, what was the incentive? Karen, you want to answer?
So, funny story. Back when what our youngest brother was born a couple of years ago, I asked my mom while we were driving on the highway, "Hey mom, can we get a dog?" Because we saw there's a store called Pets Oasis is passing by. So I asked my mom, "Mom, can we get a dog?" So and then my mom said, "You can get a dog once your little brother is 3." So once our little brother named Pacey, he turned 3, I asked my mom, "Mom, can we get a dog now?" And since by that time the Makiusa family, which is a close friend of our family, was already like involved with you guys, we decided to adopt a dog from OPJ, since that would be helpful.
Okay, nice. Thank you for choosing to adopt. Alira, you want to say something?
For us, we actually were wanting to have a dog. I think we were looking for a dog in some pet shops, but then my mom stumbled on OPJ, and we found that it would be way better to adopt than shop. Adopt on shop.
Wow, I didn't know you guys were considering to buy one. That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I never knew what's the difference between buying and adopting.
Yeah, this is a very good question. What do you think? Does anybody else want to answer this question?
I think buying, you get it from breeders, or no, it's not from pet shops pretty much. You pay for the dog itself, but when it comes to adopting, you get it from organizations, and for adopting, you I do not know either.
Okay, well, yeah, you guys answered it right. So essentially, when you're buying a dog, you could buy a dog from a person, you could buy a dog from a pet shop. Some people buy their dogs online from breeders. So that's when you're buying. But it's really, but when we're buying, and I think pet, like, so I don't want to name any places specifically, when you go to pet shops, you can see how they are treating the animals or that they have, regardless of whether they're dogs or cats. Many of them are kept in cages, they're not taken out. It's a very dirty environment. They don't really care about the animal itself. They care more about the monetary thing, right? So anybody who's coming who will pay the price of the animal, they'll gladly hand over that pet. They won't care, if you are responsible or not. And a lot of the people, by the way, who surrender their dogs to us will tell us, like, they bought them from a breeder or from an account on Instagram or from a pet shop. So that's usually where, so when you're going and buying those animals, you're essentially supporting those places to continue to do that to other animals, to continue to just, produce these animals without really any care, and without and keep them in this situation until somebody comes and buys them, right? When we're adopting, first of all, there's like the money that you're paying, which is the adoption fee. That's to cover the costs that we put into the dog, because all of the dogs that get adopted through us, they are vaccinated, they're dewormed, they come with passports, they're microchipped, a lot of, and they're neutered and they're spayed, which costs us a lot more money than the adoption fee, actually. And essentially, you're giving a dog that is, that's been abandoned already, a home. And so you're not really supporting what the pet shops or the breeders are doing.
I believe Ellison wants to know more about OPJ.
Collaboration and community support are very important in the work that you do. Do you have any partners that work towards similar goals?
Yes. I would say, like, anybody that is like supports us is our partner. And like I was mentioning before, there are a lot of like groomers, vet clinics, that are very supportive of us, and they partner with us. They help us with either giving us discounts, or they will give us free, like paid for or sponsored, what is it called? Services, like grooms or things like that. Some of the vet clinics that we work with Tahliya Vet Clinic, we work with Happy Pet, we work with International Animal Care. There are also clinics that we don't necessarily, use their services, but like they will still contact us when, let's say, a dog is dumped in front of their location. So you have at Hamra Vet Clinic, we don't really go there, not because of anything, but because we know the vets that we know, but they'll contact us when a dog is dumped in their facility. Petopia is another clinic that also is very good to rescued pets. And then you have the freelance doctors as well, some vets who also help us. Groomers, Paws and Claws is one that provides us with like sponsored grooms. Paws Place give us discounts for grooming for rescued dogs. Pets Concierge is also another one that's also that gives us discounts for grooms. Like a lot of them, honestly, like there's countless. And then you have the pet products, like a lot of the ones that we advertise on our Instagram, they would have been people who sponsored our calendar, or they would give our rescued dogs products for them. So we had one dog that was hit by a car. His name was Pluto. And then we had the company Solid Gold contribute a container of a vitamin that was essential for the ligaments that he tore, right? And then they've also, the company Kong has given us Kongs for our dogs and Kongs. And also there's a company called Westpaw. They basically provide these kind of containers for what is it called? It's a smart toy basically for your dog, to keep them preoccupied, to exert their energy, something to create fun for them. So yeah, it's like endless. There's a lot of partners, and we like to work with them because we believe in the products that they have, because they do actually help animals. And these are the type of people that we like to partner up with, is the people that we feel very confidently in also like telling people about, because they make dogs' lives and dog owners' lives better.
It's nice to hear that there are a lot of people and companies working together to help dogs live a nice life.
Yeah, another
Someone,
one, sorry, that I forgot to mention is DJ Kennels, which maybe some of you guys have heard of. Um, and DJ Kennels is a pet. They provide pet boarding, pet training. Uh, Actually, mostly it's dog boarding and dog training, dog socializing. They're also very good to us. We, a lot of times when I tell you we're stuck and we don't know where to put a dog, a lot of the times we can keep the dogs there. And it's also a really good place for people to come and see the dog that's for adoption and then apply to adopt them. And we've had dogs being adopted this way.
I think Sam wants to say something.
Yes. By the way, I learned how how responsible you have to be with the dog. Um, is when my family went to buy some stuff and I was at home, just me. And then Toby pooped on the floor and I called mom, how do I clean this up? He told me the steps and I learned how hard it is.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be okay with picking up poop if you want to have a dog, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to build more shelters around the country?
Wallahi, I want to say I wish that we had that plan. Right now, I think our plan is just to focus on, our like I guess what's the word? Like just our radius, which is mainly Jeddah and a little north of Jeddah a little bit. There are other shelters that are operating in other parts of the city, right? And so I think that we all respect each other. And so when we have somebody that's in Riyadh that wants to adopt, we would put them in touch with the shelters there, and vice versa. When we have people from Jeddah contact the people in Riyadh, those people put them in touch with us. So each one is kind of respecting their territory and their people. And especially because when we're doing home visits, it's really important that that's really a big part of the adoption process. So when we have people in other cities that are asking us for adoption, sometimes we have to we have to turn them away because we cannot do a home visit there. But I hope that eventually we can expand enough, at least in the Western region, so we can start adopting out dogs in cities like Mecca and Medina, and Taif. We would just need volunteers in those areas to be able to do home visits there, because they also have dogs that are being abandoned. So I mean, there's no plan yet, but it's a dream, I guess, that we can expand. Yeah, more.
How else is Open Paws Jeddah promoting animal welfare in the community?
I mean, I wish we were doing more, honestly, and I hope with every year, with the support of the partners that we have, that we can do more awareness campaigns on social media and events. And I mean, I feel like we believe in, basically you practice what you preach. Like, you just live your life the way that you believe, and people will learn from you. And that's kind of what we're doing. We rescue the dogs that we can rescue, and we give them the best life we can. And I feel like through these stories, people feel inspired, I hope. And bit by bit, the mentality is changing and the view of dogs is changing in the country. More and more people are having dogs and they're learning how to take care of them. And I hope that I hope that we are, we're a part of that, we're being a part of that mind shift. And but we're always open to spreading the knowledge as much as we can. It's easier to do it through social media, but I hope that inshallah in the coming year that we can do more events that engage the community and spread awareness about about adoption, about how to take care of your dog properly, because a lot of these things are taken for granted. And supporting adoption and rescue.
I think Elira wants to say something.
I find that belief really cool, and I also hope that Open Paws Jeddah will expand and maybe even be Open Paws worldwide. I really love your how your organization works. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you so much. And like it's for us, we get inspiration also from other rescues around the country, around the world, because there are rescues all over. And I'm sure that you guys are following, maybe you guys are following even some of them. And it's really inspirational when you see what they're doing, how they're working. And then we can get inspired from them and implement a lot of the things, in our own organization to become more efficient and better and help more dogs.
Okay, Sam. Say, well,
How's Cookie?
she's alright.
Yeah.
So Sam wants to say some questions too.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sam.
hmm One of the things I really hope to do with this interview is to show how to help. Since you're still too young to be doing rescuing and volunteering at the kennels, how can kids like us in Saudi Arabia help your cause?
I think one of the most ways is to spread awareness and really delve like asking a really basic question, like what's the difference between adopting and buying. Like we talked about all of this stuff, and then when we asked this question, a lot of you guys were like, yeah, what is the difference? And basically it's about digging deeper. It's about not just taking things at face value. It's about asking, where did this come from? And this goes for on everything, not just the dogs or the animals, but everything that we consume. Like, where did the clothes that we wear come from? Where did this thing that I'm drinking, where did this come from? Who made this? And so the same thing goes for the animals as well. It's like, this dog, where did this dog come from that is in a cage in this pet shop? Where did he come from? Where are his parents? And do I want to and so then we have to be conscious of like what we're supporting also. So even when you guys are going to buy pet supplies, think about, where do you buy your pet supplies from? Am I buying it from a place that also sells animals and keeps them in a bad way? Or am I, you know what I mean? Because then I'm also supporting this business and I'm encouraging them to continue to do what they're doing. So then maybe I want to stop buying from this place and buy from another place, right? And so a lot of people don't realize this. So talking to your friends and your family, encouraging them. Maybe some of them are thinking about buying a dog. So why would you encourage, maybe you could encourage them not to, and push them to adopt instead, right? And also you guys are really talented. I was talking to Aliville about doing maybe more help with social media, because you guys are really good. Like, we already have the YouTube channel, you're doing all the stuff online. So you could definitely, I see you guys definitely helping us more with the social media stuff, because we could learn from you, honestly.
Can you tell us a bit more about the OPJ calendar for 2022? What is your theme for next year?
Okay, so we're still working on it. It's it's something that we've been doing now for, I think, 4 or 5 years. This is going to be the 5th year, I believe. We still haven't launched it yet, but it's definitely being worked on. The theme for the coming year is dog portraits. So like portraits of dogs. Like, I hope that's tells you something. And hopefully we are hoping, fingers crossed, to have it ready by mid-December, inshallah. So we're going to need your help also to sell those calendars, because touching back on like how do we I guess financially like keep ourselves going, one of the ways is through doing this calendar and selling the calendar. It does provide a lot of like income for much needed income for the vet bills that we need to cover.
I really can't wait to buy that calendar, because last time we got one, when we got Felix, it was top notch.
Okay, I'm glad. And
So
then
when
maybe next year we can, the year in 2023, we can feature Felix in it.
yeah. Do you have any specific platforms you can mention where people will buy the calendar? Since not normally they could just know exactly. I mean, you don't guys don't necessarily have a physical shop. if I'm not sure, like where they have like a gift shop for dog merchandise.
Yeah. Well, we usually this is when our partners would come in, and so they would help us sell the calendars. So the pet shops that we support, like Happy Tails, Paws Place, these are usually the places that we would sell the calendar, and then the groomers are also selling the calendar. So Paws and Claws truck, Pets Concierge truck, the Paws Place truck, and then the clinics that we deal with. So Tahliya Vet Clinic, Happy Pet Clinic. Um, these are like IAC. These are the clinics that we usually. These are the places that we usually would sell them. The schools also help us a huge. But we have the American school. They have an Open Paws Jeddah club in the school, so they usually will help us sell the calendar within their network through their bazaars. They also help spread awareness about us. So for people who want to adopt, to contact us. Um, so yeah, and we're hoping to sell it online as well this year, inshallah.
We've really been enjoying our time with you because it's been so amazing learning all the different intricacies, of running a dog shelter. Because I can imagine that people think it's have dog, and then other people just get the dog, but it's way more complicated than acquire dog and give dog.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
So I believe that Alira has something to say.
Speaking of OPJ School Club, I guess I have a school that is not in Jeddah, so I am interested on, is there a digital calendar that I can share with my friends maybe that can also be bought, I guess?
We haven't delved into the digital world yet, but this is very interesting, and I think that maybe you can help us either digitalize the one we're going to launch in 2022, or work on the 2023 version to be a digital one. But I think that, I mean, so you tell me, how can we create a digital version, and if we can do it for the coming year, then we're definitely open to that. Why not?
Yeah, there are actually many platforms where you can digitally sell your items. I mean, yeah, sure, it'll be delivered physically, but like there are these places where you can like set up your own account where you can have shops. Like I remember ones like Etsy. Etsy, you set up account, and it's a place where people buy and sell stuff that they've made. Okay, so I believe that to wrap us up, we have Philip, my little brother.
Lastly, what is your hope for OPJ's future?
What is my hope for OPJ's future? Wallahi, my hope is that we're able to rescue more dogs, that we can become more, work in a more official capacity so that we can get more support from the government. Because the way that we're functioning now, we're still just a group of volunteers, and we wish that we can become something more official, so that we can grow in the way that we talked about, so that we can expand in the way that we were talking about before, and be able to help more dogs, and be able to help more people adopt dogs, and provide maybe like a reference for people who have dogs, to know how to take care of them in the best way that they can, to like kind of like a database, so we'd have like so we can have maybe all the dogs microchipped with a database, so that you never have this issue of like, oh, there's a lost dog, we don't know who's this dog, for example. That if there was a dog that was being abused or something by their owner, that we could just go in and remove the dog from this person who's abusing them. That we would not have to worry about always figuring out where we're going to get financial support. If we ever needed to take a dog to the vet, we don't have to worry about it, about how we're going to cover the vet bills and these types of things. So that would be my dream, is to just be able to operate more comfortably without the struggles that we were talking about before.
We are one with you in that hope for a brighter future for the animal community here in KSA. With those who want to help Open Paws Jeddah, please share again how they can connect with you.
Okay, so the best ways to connect with us are through Facebook. You would just search Open Paws Jeddah, or Instagram, also Open Paws Jeddah. Or you can go to our website, openpawsjeddah.com. Those are the best ways to get in touch with us.
I also have one last question to add. What is the most what is the most meaningful part of your work?
The most meaningful part of our work is when we see like the before and after, right? Like after a while, you know, when we first pick up a dog that's like maybe like emotionally broken and scared, his tail is between his legs, maybe he has a physical injury, or he's just like his eyes are telling a whole story. And I always say, like, remember how he is now, because once he gets adopted and he gets his after, it's going to be something amazing. And so that's really the thing that is so motivating, is that when you see a dog that was rescued in a really poor condition and then he makes an amazing recovery and he gets adopted by a fantastic family and he's like living his life, that's really the most rewarding thing ever. And it pushes us to continue to do, to help the next dog, because we want their ever after, like their happy ending for them. So that's really the highlight, is like, all these dogs that you guys have, seeing them with you and remembering where they came from, remembering how they were found and how they were really scared and alone and just maybe dirty and in a really bad state, and seeing them how they are now, that's the biggest reward. Who's gonna go first, Perrin or Ali?
So, everything that you said today, it really just made me more excited, because I'm actually a kind of person, I really do like animals. And animals, not only dogs, but birds, cats, all kinds of animals. So maybe in the future, I can actually have like a shelter or a place where I can keep animals. Well, okay, my dog's barking right now. Okay. Where we can actually keep animals and birds, and scientifically find better ways to take care of them, like more efficient ways, because honestly it's actually very saddening that not only families can not take care of dogs, but there are some shelters in other countries that also don't know how to take care of dogs. They just put them in some kind of random shed that they were able to buy for $100, and then try to put them in cages. So essentially their life is not really that much different from when they were on the streets.
Yeah. Yeah, and just starting yourself. Like, I'm glad that you felt like you're inspired to do your own thing, and that's what it's all about. Every one of us is just trying to do what they can, give back to our community and the community that we are in, to help out in any way that we can. Even if you put food or water for a cat on the street, or you find an injured bird and you take them to get medical care, and just try to make their life better. And I really, something that is very incredible is that a lot of the times the people who are contacting us, telling us like, oh, I found a dog on the street and he's really in a bad condition, please can you help him, like I'll bring him to you, whatever you need, we'll help in any way that we can. A lot of the times those people are not even dog people. They'd be like, I'm actually scared of dogs. Like, I don't even know the first thing about them, but I saw him and I just couldn't help. Like, I felt so heartbroken. And so that's really so encouraging to us, because for every person that threw a dog out on the street, there's 10 people who are trying to help that dog, and that's really very encouraging. So if we all just do our part, we'll make the world a better place.
I too like seeing growth in our doggies. This one over here, he was very shy and easily scared. And but nowadays he's very sweet, still a bit shy and still a bit scared, but he's way better than before. And now he's sometimes interrupts my meetings and comes to me.
What about you, Alice? You want to talk about Cookie a little bit? Oh, looks like she got groomed.
And we We shaved her fur.
You shaved her? Okay.
Yes.
Let's see. Let's
And
see.
she feels much more comfortable with
I'm
it.
sure. Yeah, because this type, you need to shave her. Like Toby and Louie, no need to shave them, but Cookie needs to be shaved. And Felix also, no need to shave him. Obviously, you guys know that. Let's see her face. I want to see her face. Show us. Hi, Cookie. Oh wow, look at her, mashallah. She's looking very good.
So honestly, it's actually the same. With Felix, he used to be very, very scared, timid. Sometimes he would be in the bedroom, not on the bed, thankfully, but just on the floor. Sometimes he'd pee, but now we're really seeing like his true nature, which he's very playful. He always wants to play. He's always barking at me like, "Please play with me." And I'm like, but it's not like because we're like neglecting him. He always just wants to play at all times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what's amazing is that these dogs, if you just give them the time, like, and this is, and it can be, you're talking about days sometimes, and if you just give them the time, they will be amazing. So we always tell people, don't give up. In the beginning, yes, maybe the dog is going to have some pee accidents. Maybe it's going to be on your bed. Maybe it's going to be on the dining table.
Felix, wanna say hi?
But if you just give them the time to settle in, they will amaze you. Look at him. He's doing great. I remember his name used to be Donut. Remember?
I remember. Now we named him Felix, like a cat,
Yes.
because he's as small as a cat.
Yalla, inshallah, you get
So
another.
very small.
And also, by the way, if you guys are here over the winter break and you're not traveling and you guys are interested in fostering, please let us know. Maybe already, because people who already have dogs, it's easier for them to foster a second one. And you can have a playmate for your dog just for a period of time. Okay, guys, you guys have any more questions for me? Thank you so much for doing this. I'm very excited.
I do.
Sam, you have? Okay.
Right now, Puppy is changing every day.
Okay, so you named her
Puppy,
Poppy? Alas, that's her name?
yeah,
Okay, nice.
he used to think she used to think I was a chair, and now she's starting to know my ranks in this house.
Okay.
And the person she follows a lot and loves to, pretty much follow around this mom.
Your mom? Okay, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm glad she's already settling in. And you're going to see changes every day. She's going to change, hopefully for the better with every day.
Actually, there's this time where the Alira's family, Amakisa's family, actually we actually fostered one of the kittens. I'm sure you know one of the kittens is a Poof. And the good thing was that Felix wasn't necessarily barking and everything, trying to fight with the cat. Rather, he was just, wow, it's a cat. So that just made us realize that he just gets nervous when he's around cats, not necessarily angry or aggressive. Because the fun thing is that Poof is very comfortable, around like Louis or Felix, and is who always wants to play with them. Like, yeah, she has no trouble just going up them and like being beside them. But when it comes to Felix is not used to it. So there are many times where Felix was wagging his tail, and then Poof would come up behind him and start trying to play with his tail, and Felix would be like, so surprised, like, who's that?
Yeah. What about you, Preston? You haven't said anything.
Well, all I want to say is that we're thankful that we're so thankful that you for your time that you gave your time to spend time with us today, and that we hope this inspires other people to get involved too, and that and let's say open their hearts and homes to volunteer, foster, and adopt. And we wish you all the best, and may God continue to bless the work of your hands. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Miss
Thank
Noor.
you, Miss
It was
Noor.
really fun talking with you, Miss
Thank
Noor.
you. Thank you.
It was really a pleasure. Thank you so
Take
much.
up.